Hello, this is a quick overview of Optimum's PMO Catalyst using Smartsheet. Every single project starts out entering into the intake sheet. The recommended way of doing so is via the form. The form is completely configurable and customizable with dynamic fields, etc. Right now we have a pretty simple form with some fields required, some not, so you can get the relevant information that's critical, but leave some fields open to encourage people to submit their projects sooner rather than later. As you'll see, you are able to submit files to these uploads, and they will attach directly to the project row once it is created. Once you submit a new project, we see our project intake sheet here. Each line in this sheet is a project that has been entered either through the form or has been just added directly to the sheet. Either are viable, and each of these represents metadata related to a given project. So what we do is we enter the form that has all of our most critical kind of high-level information. Then we go and continue to fill this out depending on different criteria. We see items like region here that impact dynamic fields. And then we also have some fields here that are actually being sourced directly from the projects that have been provisioned using Control Center, which is the tool we use to automatically create our underlying projects. Now, we also have some project prioritization here, saying that, depending on the score given to these different items here, we get a higher or lower score that lets us kind of sort and prioritize and better know what to work on next. All this high-level information is then linked down, as you can see here, using these gray arrows to these underlying projects. So the idea is once you enter information once, you never have to enter it again, right? Especially for high-level metadata like this. If we need to reference any of this information, we do that at the project level directly, linking this information down, right? So you don't have to enter this information twice. Once that project is provisioned, as you see, a link to the project dashboard appears here, which we're going to go ahead and pop open. This gives us a high-level overview of all the KPIs, details of a project, and allows you to navigate to the individual elements of the solution from the dashboard, right? So as this gets opened up, what we should see is graphs and metrics and kind of other related items to the project at the high level. So a quick overview, we have a phase timeline here pulled directly from project data. We have all of our links to our project sheets that we're going to be using to navigate to our items, as well as a link to our portfolio dashboard that we will be using a little bit later. We have some information being linked down. We also have some metrics being pulled from the project data. We have our financial information here, which is sourced from our financial sheets, our budget, and our expense log, which we'll be going over here in a moment. We also have our kind of past due tasks, open RAID items, any items, risks, actions, issues, decisions that are open, as well as kind of our active communications, right? Anywhere the start date is previous to today or today, we will see those in there, as well as, of course, just a breakdown of what type our open RAID items are. From here, we're going to jump into our project plan, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of any project management solution, of course. What we're looking at here is a sheet with phases, right? So if we collapse all of our phases here, we see that all the high-level data is rolling up here, and we're actually not able to edit these fields directly because all of that data is being rolled up from our underlying rows, right? So you'll see that when we get down to these underlying items, we can edit them directly, but not items that have child rows. And the reason for that is it allows us to automatically keep all these things up to date, right? So if I update this to 6 days here, we see that our duration increases, and you probably saw that a lot of our subsequent tasks completed, and that is due to the predecessor column here. This is looking at the row number for each item and saying, don't start this task until this other task is complete, more or less. And you can see that relationship over here using the Gantt chart with the little arrows, and you can also toggle critical path, which lets you see which tasks will actually push out your final end date based on your predecessor relationships, right? So just a nice, easy view to see kind of where you're at, what's going to impact things, right? I should highlight that we have our health fields over here, which serve as a leading indicator for when something might be falling behind. This is actually based off like an expected % complete, where we're looking at the duration and saying about how far along should we be in this task based on duration. So items should turn yellow once something kind of falls behind pace, and it should turn red once it's overdue. And blue, in this case, of course, indicates complete. One other relevant feature in the project sheet that is highly relevant is the baselining. This allows us to keep our actual start and finish dates and durations, et cetera, all up to date while maintaining a baseline of our original project plan, right? So at the beginning of the project, you set up your plan, you say, this is what we're going to work on, this is how we're going to work. But as we all know, in the real world, things rarely go according to plan. And we want this to represent accurately where we expect things to be for the future of our project, not just where we're expecting things to be right at the very beginning. So this allows us to see the variance, which is the difference between that original schedule and our current schedule, and is a great way to allow you to continue to keep your project up to date and have it be a live document updated by the folks that are managing these individual tasks. You can also include, create automations for these individuals to alert them that something is coming up on due, various other items, update requests, etc. Right? So in this one we have when something's due in a week, when a milestone status changes, etc. Right? So you can basically do whatever you want with these as far as alerting these individuals of what is happening on these tasks, as well as even receive updates from them if you so desire. That's the high level on the project plan. What we're going to do is actually open this Workspaces tab, though you can also just jump back to the dashboard by pushing the back button, however you usually navigate backwards. If you go to the project dashboard, you can, of course, jump to any of these objects directly from there, but using the Workspaces tab is a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. What we're going to hit next is the RAID log. This is just a high-level log tracking the risks, actions, issues, decisions related to the project, basically things that don't fit in the project plan go in here. This sheet also has an associated form, so if you'd like to submit RAID items through a form, you are able to do so quickly and easily, or you can submit them as line items just like in the intake sheet. This just tracks high-level items such as assignment, etc. Automations are the same in that you can alert. We're looking at open ones on the project dashboard. Once they're closed, they fall off. And then we also, of course, have priority, probability, impact, etc. to score these items for prioritization, right? Nothing too fancy here, but a nice sheet for keeping track of all the little things that are easy to fall through the cracks when you're managing a project. Next, we're probably going to look at the next to the project plan, most important of the element, the money. The budget is designed to allow to give you a initial calculated budget for the entire project, right? So you have your initial budget in the intake sheet, right? I think we call it expected budget here. That's telling you, hey, this is a high level of what we expect our budget to look like going into the project, but this is once you actually got approval for your project, everything like that, you can actually start creating a budget line by line, right? So each of these categories can have as many lines. You can add lines as needed to add different items to this, right? We want this to be as granular as you want it to be, right? And then we're rolling up our category totals here. We can pop open our summary, see our totals for across everything, as well as our expected budget we put in the intake, so we can use that for comparison to our total calculated budget, which is also pulled back into the intake sheet for comparison down the road. With this, once we kind of construct our budget, get all of our line items in here, etc., this sheet gets basically left alone, right? You can edit it and add a change order process down the road or something like that. But currently, this sheet is basically left alone. And then all budget information is put into the expenditure log, which is pulled then into the budget for comparison. So each individual expenditure is entered into a form called via an expense entry form with the receipt or invoice attached and the relevant cost category. This allows us to do full-blown, kind of proper expense tracking, or you can integrate with an outside system to bring that data in automatically if you already do your finances elsewhere. This is a quick and easy way to just keep track of expenses directly on the project level, and then that data, once it's entered here, goes through an approval process via automation to whoever the approver is. So a new item is entered, it goes to the approver, they review it, and then once they get approval, it's actually showing up in our budget categories here. So we have our pending, which is those items that haven't yet been approved, spent, all of our approved items, then remaining, of course, the difference between the total and what we have spent. So that's kind of how financial information is managed in this Smartsheet system. We also have a stakeholder registry, which is just an easy way to keep track of the folks working on and are associated with the project. It's a very high-level sheet, just letting you add name, employee ID, etc. Any information you could need to this, very flexible, and you can even reference this via other sheets if needed, depending on what data you're kind of looking for and what categories, etc. Very easy to modify and use sheet. And then last, we have our communications plan here, which is a simple high-level, hey, what current, recurring, or very important to keep track of meetings, communications, etc. are we running, right? So we have a few different types here. This can, of course, be adapted for emails, messages, remote meetings, in-person meetings, social media posts even, etc., right? However your team communicates or however your group communicates. Then we have a few different audiences here. Again, basically just keep track of, hey, what are our ongoing meetings? What are our ongoing communications? Is there anything that we're losing track of, right? Is there anyone who doesn't have visibility? So this is just a high-level view to keep track of all of those itty-bitty little details associated with project management and give you yet another resource for reference purposes if that helps make some of your business processes in the other sheets more streamlined. All right, that's a high-level overview of all the project information. So I'm going to hop back to the project dashboard just to demonstrate how to hop back to the portfolio dashboard. You can, of course, always use this side view, right? You could hop open to the portfolio reporting, hit portfolio dashboard. That's an easy way to do it. Or if you're on any of your project dashboards, you can just hop back to the portfolio dashboard via this link. And our portfolio dashboard, of course, is our higher level view even than our project dashboard, right? So from here, we're looking across all of our projects at KPIs, graphs, etc., anything we need in order to get a realistic idea of where we are as a company, basically, or at least across our entire PMO, right? What this does is it gives us a ton of information on both the high-level breakdowns for some some resource management, some regional management, projects by department, budget, of course, at the high level at the top left, as well as our active projects timeline spread out across quarters and months, so you can really see high level where these are at. You can even see the percent complete within each of these items, represented by this gray bar versus the black, right? That is the actual project percent complete in them. You can kind of see where it's supposed to be at versus where you're actually at based on which month in the quarter you're at. We also have, of course, our past due tasks across all of our projects here. These might be better served to be just, high priority tasks or milestones or something like that, but for the purposes of demonstration, we have them all in here. Same for open rate items, right? This is all of our open rate items, which is likely a lot for most portfolio management solutions. But as you'll see in both these sheets, we do have links down to those individual items, and if you click on those, it will actually bring you to that project plan at that task, so you can look at what we're dealing with and make any updates there as needed. Finally, I should call out that is, of course, the case on our timelines here, right? If you see something with red health, you can easily drill down into one of these project dashboards and get an idea of what's going on, right? So that's the intent, is to start at this high level, look at where our issues and our problems might be, and then drill down into those underlying sheets via the links. And that's the kind of intended navigation of the system. And of course, we have a financial summary for all of our projects here. Each of these lines is a project, and we can mouse over them to kind of see some details about these items. Again, this is high level, completely based on all the underlying project data that's being collected, right? You'll see here that we have our solution that we were just looking at being shown. Of course, our pipeline is our upcoming projects, right? These are the items in the pipeline that we haven't yet fully approved and provisioned, and so we're just looking at them to see what is upcoming. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention one other feature that some folks find very useful. It's called a current user dashboard. This is just a sheet for an individual contributor to come in here and look at kind of the projects they're on, or it could be geared towards a project manager or other position where we say, hey, what projects am I working on right now? Where are my at-risk tasks at across all of my projects? And then, of course, what are my outstanding rate items, as well as any projects that I might be assigned to coming up to one of our key positions. This is just so you are aware that this exists. You can basically have this geared towards whoever's looking at this dashboard, right? So these underlying reports are based on a current user, so that is whoever's logged into the system and looking at the dashboard. So this will appear differently for me versus someone else who is assigned to different tasks on different projects. They would see their information here. So yeah, that's a high-level overview of our portfolio management system using Smartsheet. Please reach out if you want more information. Thanks. Bye.